Before 1976, American history textbooks typically treated the lives of enslaved people as starting at the plantation gate. This narrative framing assumed that the millions of people taken from Africa were blank slates, whose identities and histories only began once they arrived in the Americas. In 1750, a boy named Kunta Kinte was born into a reality that contradicts this myth. He grew up in Jufure, a Mandinka village in the Gambia with its own established laws, schools, and oral historians. In 1767, while 17-year-old Kunta was in the forest chopping wood to make a drum, he was ambushed by slave traders. He was beaten, tied, and dragged away from his village. The transatlantic slave trade functioned as a mechanical engine of erasure, designed to systematically strip away a person's name, their home, and their history, until only a laborer remained. This stoa diagram of a British slave ship illustrates the physical scale of that erasure. Kunta was marched hundreds of miles to the coast and forced into a vessel like this for the Middle Passage. Below deck, hundreds of men were chained side by side in spaces so cramped they could not sit upright. The ship's architecture treated human beings as pressurized cargo, a physical environment built to break the individual spirit. When Kunta reached a Virginia plantation, his enslavers used renaming and mutilation to finish what the ship started. He was forced to answer to the name Toby, and after his fourth escape attempt, his foot was partially amputated with an axe to ensure he could never run again. These tactics were calculated to destroy a person's connection to their past. The story of roots begins here, as a conflict between institutional erasure and the stubborn persistence of human memory. Kunta Kinte's resistance was quiet and linguistic. He mentally rejected the name Toby and whispered Mandinka words like Kambi Bolongo for the Gambia River to his daughter, Kizzy. When Kizzy was sold away, she carried those words with her. She taught the family history to her son, Chicken George, who then passed the story of the African and the Kambi Bolongo to his own son, Tom Murray. Following the Civil War, Tom Murray moved the family to Henning, Tennessee. He built a blacksmith business and a home, navigating the violent landscape of the Reconstruction-era South to protect his family's future. On a porch in Tennessee, the family tradition continued. Older women recited the phonetic sounds of the African to a young boy named Alex Haley, listening to stories of a man who was whipped for refusing his English name. Because the legal system denied enslaved people birth certificates and written records, these whispered stories became the family's only evidence of their own existence. While Kunta Kinte's descendants were preserving his name in the American South, a parallel process was happening across the Atlantic. This is a griot. In West African culture, the griot is a professional oral historian dedicated to memorizing the genealogies and laws of their community. In the Gambia, griots were publicly maintaining the Kinte family history, reciting the names of ancestors dating back centuries. The slave trade had inadvertently created two isolated records of the same family, separated by an ocean and 200 years of silence. In the 1960s, an adult Alex Haley began a 12-year search to see if the stories from his grandmother's porch were fact or myth. He discovered that his family's phrase, Kambi Bolongo, was the Mandinka name for the Gambia River, providing the first concrete geographical link to his past. Haley searched through plantation records and maritime archives until he found the ship his family's oral history suggested, the Lord Ligonier, which sailed from the Gambia to Maryland in 1767. By combining ship records with family folklore, Haley prepared to bridge the gap between American history and African memory. Haley traveled to the village of Jufure, moving up the same river Kunta Kinte was forced down 2 centuries earlier. He met the village griot, who began reciting the Kinte lineage. The griot eventually reached the generation of a young man named Kunta, who went into the woods one morning to cut wood for a drum and was never seen again. The detail of the drum, preserved on a porch in Tennessee, matched the account of a man who had never left the village in Africa. The two severed threads of memory finally met. Roots stands as proof that the impulse to remember can survive the most organized efforts to erase it. By restoring his ancestor's name, Haley restored the history that slavery tried to destroy.